The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's... it's not only Friday. Apparently, it's Friday the 13th.
That's right.
Uh-oh. Oh, God. Our studio's been invaded.
We're being taken over by the Friday the 13th people. Jason is roaming the halls.
That's it.
And I can tell you right now, he's not roaming the halls at FROED.
Well, I don't know. We've got, as usual, the saga continues of Fall River and its inability to do anything even close to being right and having any kind of process.
What process?
Yep.
Well, you know, it's interesting because the city has divested itself, or the mayor has divested himself of FROED, yet we're going to pitch the new Durfee to FROED? Why?
Well, it says here they're trying to get businesses involved and helping help the new school officials reach out to the business community asking for help getting a new Durfee built. That means they want some promo money, because they're going to try to convince the people about, you know, footing another bill to go with the other bond. Another override, $240 million. But you know what disturbs me, and we're not making this up because you can read the article in the Herald News. It says the city's been offered a one-time opportunity, which they're going to say, oh, you only got one chance at this. But this is the part that disturbs me. The city has been offered a one-time opportunity for the grant. It is important to understand how rare this is. Only 5 districts have been offered this grant. And the grant is offered because the existing Durfee was found deficient in almost every category. That is the reason that the building is such a priority, is all the deficiencies. Now, you know, and it goes on to talk about more of the problems. You know, this is government at its best. We spent millions and millions of dollars on that thing. A few people went to jail. Well, actually, one person went to jail. A few other people retired early. And when we built this, and we built another bucket of crap. I mean, we've got fire stations that were built in the 1800s that are still standing. They sandblasted the exterior, have turned them into buildings. Some of them are actually operational. Stanley Street. You know, the north end has been transitioned. The old Flint fire station has been changed over to office space, I believe. But these buildings were built, you know, fundamentally 2 centuries ago. And they're still around. But anything the city builds, and where's the maintenance? You know, we've said this time and time again, there's a city ordinance that requires buildings be maintained. It assigns that responsibility. So, but again, we have to pay for that. Somebody was collecting a huge salary to be in charge of buildings and grounds. Why don't we take the $240 million out of their paychecks? Why don't we attach their pays?
You mean you actually want them to do something?
Why don't they? Why isn't there any responsibility in this community? Every city building is in total disrepair. Yet, there are ordinances to say that we have to maintain those buildings.
Of course.
We're going to give every Tom, Dick, and Harry a job. We're going to spend money everywhere, but we're not going to maintain our buildings because we don't have to. Because what we do is let the building fall apart, and then we get the taxpayers to pay for a new building. Again, government at its best.
And you know, let's look at this. This building is 40 years old. 40 years old.
Yep.
And now they want to make a building that's reminiscent of the old Jerfy. Well, the old Jerfy they remodeled wonderfully.
Which, by the way, they said was beyond repair.
Exactly.
And look what they did to it. It's gorgeous in
Exactly.
here. It's absolutely gorgeous in here.
And this is the problem. And now they want to rebuild the old Jerfy on the same site.
Even though we had the real Durfee.
Right.
At one time, and we gave it up because we said you can't fix it. No, you can't fix it because there's not enough money to be made by everybody with their finger in the pie like they did with this new Durfee. 40 years, we don't have a building. You look at that building was built when? I don't know. That building, I think, may have been built in the 1800s. I believe, I'm not going to say for accurate, but I believe it is modeled after the City Hall of Paris. Because, you know, that's the Durfee I went to, the tech building and the Durfee building, and it was like a campus school. You could walk across the street from class to class. But that building was, you know, it was old when I went there. But it was, you know, it could be rehabbed. The structure obviously is sound. It looks absolutely beautiful. And as does the old Flint Fire Station. But not the government. The government says, hey, we're gonna tell you, we're gonna pay somebody to be the supervisor of buildings and grounds. We're gonna pay somebody to be in charge of the Department of Community Maintenance, who by ordinance has to maintain the buildings. We're gonna pay somebody to school department, a separate check, another check for the same thing.
Right.
To be in charge of buildings.
Everybody's got to get a job.
So now we're paying 2 people to be in charge of maintaining buildings, and nobody maintains buildings. Because this is what disturbs me. When it says that Durfee was found deficient in almost every category. It's not like one thing. It's like everything. Everything in that building is absolute crap. A 40-year-old building. We've got 120-year-old 3-deckers that are still in better shape than a school that we spent millions of dollars for. And as I said, from the get-go, that thing's been a boondoggle because a few people went to, one guy went to jail and a few other people almost went to jail and had to retire early. So again, we never learned from anything. It's a good thing we're not a child putting our hand on a stove because we'd be out of arms. We would have not burnt our hands off. We'd have burnt our entire upper torso off. We'd be working on our feet by now.
But, you know, it's not only in this building.
It's all of them. Yeah.
It's all of them.
It's everything.
Look at the vet center. They're going to spend almost $300,000. And Councilor Ponte brought it up very clearly at the city council meeting. For $300,000, we could have built, a brand new one, top of the line, okay, with all the bells and whistles. Yeah. But we're going to spend $300,000 and we can't even get windows in the place. Yeah. Somebody's making money on the taxpayer dime.
Yeah,
I mean, this is at least with Leo Pelletier, he tells you, I'm going to live on the dole. Yeah. I'm going to live on the dole. I need to have a government job because I can't live anywhere else. I can't work anywhere else, and I need the bennies. At least he's honest about it.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think that's why people vote for him. I don't think they vote for him because they think he's a good city councilor. I think they vote for him because they know he's a poor soul and needs the
benefits. And he makes a good chow mein sandwich.
And he makes a good chow mein sandwich. That's right.
And ham and beef. But no, you're right, CJ. I mean, we look at this, it's like every building. Look at the Armory. You look at these buildings, and it just boggles your mind. It's like, can you do this in your house? No, you can't, because you have to pay the bill. You're not going to let your roof fall into disrepair and destroy the rest of your house because everything's leaking in. You have to fix a roof. At some point in time, you got to stop spending your money going on trips and partying at the Ritz-Carlton and doing what you got to do and giving all your nephews money for their expense accounts. And you got to actually maintain the building you live in. You have to fix your roof, because if you let it continue to leak, it's going to create more damage. That's the way real people live, not governments. They just let the damn roof leak. Then they ask for CPA money to fix it, and then they don't fix it with that CPA money, and then they ask for more money. And now the same thing with Durfee. It's like you got 2 people being paid 6-figure salaries to maintain those buildings. You have one that's in charge of all city buildings, and it says it in the ordinance. But we also have the school department, which, by the way, a lot of people think like the school department is not part of the city. Well, it is. Granted, ed reform did give them some autonomy on a lot of things. But the reality is, it's part of the city.
They still get the money from us.
That's why they have to go over to the city council during the budget hearings and justify their budget, because it's not separate. But they've got their own everything. They've got their own treasurer. They've got their own building and grounds. They've got their own everything over there. More six-figure salaries at your expense. And now they want us, the taxpayer, to give them another $240 million. And everybody remember what we said more than once on this show. How you get it twice. You're going to vote for this bond, and you're going to be in debt. Your grandchildren's grandchildren's grandchildren will still be paying this bond. Probably just the interest, like we do now.
Not like we do now.
Just the interest. That's why it'll never go away. And we're also going to get slammed on your property tax.
That's right.
Because guess what? That's going to go into the tax base. The same thing with the bond for the pipes. You know what I say? I'm giving you my position already. I'm telling you how I'm voting on every bond issue. No. No.
I think you voted that way on the charter, too.
You will never get me to approve giving you more money until you show me you can at least spend the money I've already given you all these years wisely. That building is a disgrace. The fact that it's deficient in almost every category is a disgrace. But this is what government does. And this is what you let government do by continuing to listen to their crap about we're going to get fines. And well, guess what? You know something? Go ahead. Get the fines. Go into receivership. I've said that before. And when we go into receivership, the receiver's going to come into the city and chop everybody's legs off. There's going to be no more excuses. You know, oh, I can't do that. That's a collective buy. No, they're just going to start. They're going to take a chainsaw to everything. And what people don't like to hear is that most communities that go into receivership, once they come out of receivership, they're in far, far better shape, and their finances are much, much more in line with what the people want, because that's what a receiver does when he comes into the city. He actually prioritizes where you spend your money, and he gets rid of fat, some bone, and some muscle. But the fact is, sometimes you need to take drastic action. And this city is it's just totally out of control. All they know how to do is spend money. I mean, we just chosen again in the top 5 for opioid.
Yep.
Yep. We made the top 5 again.
You really want to hear a good one? There's now flavored Narcan.
Oh, good.
I don't know if it was a joke or not, but a nurse posted pumpkin scented or pumpkin flavored Narcan. I'm like, what the hell are they doing?
Hopefully that's a joke.
I'm hoping it was too, because if it's not, if it's the real thing, I'm really sad. You know, because it's sad enough that we give it away. People who need insulin and people who need an EpiPen can't get it for free, but these junkies can get it for free.
But let's pitch it to FROED, then they're going to pitch it to you, the taxpayer, and you, the taxpayer, should say, hell no, you know, you people you can't, look, we're not going anywhere. We continue to have high unemployment. We continue to be one of the lowest, have the lowest income. We continue to have nearly a quarter of our population living below the poverty level. What do we got? 80% of our children on the school lunch program.
84 or 87.
84, and it's getting worse. Yeah, I mean, almost 9 out of 10 children are, you know, at an income level where they're on a school lunch program. So, I mean, yeah, this is a city that's got tons of money, everybody. Keep going. Keep going, council. Keep going, mayor. Just keep taxing us all. And guess what? The only people that will be here will be you, the rich and nauseous, who keep giving yourselves giant pay raises, and the poor people who can't get out of town because they can't get enough of their house, or they or they're going to lose their house because they're elderly, they're on a fixed income, and without a mortgage, their house has probably been paid for 30 years, but they can't afford now to pay all the taxes and fees that you guys got, and you walk in front of the council and boldly state, you know, you're supposed to get your taxes and fees increased every year. That's a lie. That is another Goebbels lie.
Yep.
You know, and this is what we've got. So in November, not only should we be shooting down the charter, but we should be shooting down the bonds, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you know, this
That's
is
just my
interesting,
opinion.
and you know, I can understand this a little bit, but you know, some people may be confused. It says in this story, the architects from A13 appeared before the board of the Florida Office of Economic Development Thursday morning. They presented sketches and preliminary plans for a new high school that would cost the city an estimated $72 to $96 million. Second paragraph, the total cost will be about $240 million, with the Massachusetts School Building Association providing the bulk of the money. 80% of that money would be $160. So yeah, 72 to 96 would be how much we'd have to do, but they're going to bond, they're going to ask for a $240 million debt exclusion, which means they're going to take the money from MSBA and put it in their pocket because they can pay this over 40 years.
Or at least pay the interest for 40 years.
Yeah, or at least pay the interest for 40 years. So remember that when this comes up, because the only thing the city has to come up with is $72 to $96 million. They don't need to bond $240 million.
Yes, they do.
Okay? They don't need to bond $240 million. So this, again, is how they make up the story for you to understand. We got to bond $240 million, because if we don't bond $240 million, the state won't give us 80% of it. But when we bond that, we don't pay it back right away, because when that 80% comes in, it goes somewhere else, and nobody knows where it goes, because it can't go pay the bonds, because the bonds are 30-year bonds. People bought them for 30 years so they can get some income, tax-free. So they can't be paid off early. It's not like your mortgage where you can pay it off early if you've got the money.
That's not, those numbers aren't even correct. But
I know.
Them again. Those numbers aren't.
They're not. That's what I'm saying. The numbers don't make any sense.
Yeah, no. And that's a pretty wide range, 72 to 96 million. And that's not that, you know, if they're paying 80, we pay 20, and I just did a quick 20% of 240 million. It doesn't come out in that range.
Exactly. So
it's
again, the
actually
lies,
you know,
more
again,
lies.
More and more BS. But the fact is, let's get down to the bottom line. Why should we be paying for a 40-year-old building that's this? Why don't we ever learn? If your car doesn't run and you blow your engine and you go back to the dealer and say, well, I want a new engine because this engine blew up on me, and then they check and find out that you didn't put oil in the car ever, guess what? They're not giving you an engine.
That's right.
Well, guess what? We have city ordinances that said that these buildings were supposed to be maintained, and this and virtually every other building in the city is in a total state of disrepair. Yet for the past 40 years, somebody was collecting a big paycheck to be in charge of buildings and grounds.
6 figures.
6 figures, buildings and grounds in the school department, and we also had a DCM director who was commissioned to maintain the buildings of the city. So what happened? What happened to all the maintenance people who got a paycheck? What happened to all the people who got paid for 40 years? And this building is a total disaster.
Yeah. This
Funds that we call taxpayers.
Hey, I guess they turned the heat up on the city council on Tuesday, because now all of a sudden, no extensions expected for the King Philip Mill.
Well, that's only till election time.
Well, no.
No, I know. It's after the election's after the deadline, but they could resurrect anything. You know, we got, maybe this is going to, it's no longer going to be called the King Philip Project. It's going to be the Lazarus Project.
But you know, it's interesting.
Or the Phoenix. It will rise from the ashes.
It's interesting because we on this show have brought up the questions after question after question after question of this whole project. The sale of the building, the alleged auction, the back deals. I mean, the conspiracy between Alan Sylvia, the mayor, and Mr. DeRosas. All of a sudden now, oh, well, we're not going to give them an extension. They got to close by October 31st. As a matter of fact, to quote the mayor, At this point in time, we don't feel we'll be giving an extension, said Mayor Jason Correa. If they can close on the sale, then they should close. Hey, you know what? They should have closed already. I've never seen a P&S, a purchase and sale agreement on any property that extends 90, 180, 240 days. 90, yeah, possibly, okay?
Yeah.
But 180 days, 240 days,
well,
6 to 8 months, you're crazy.
Well, the other thing is they shouldn't have given them the building in the first place.
That's right.
That entire bid, we've said it from the get-go, that entire bid process was shady at best because, they put in too high a guarantee, then they let this guy come in and not meet the guarantee. They didn't have a floor. Now he gets the building for 110.
And he still can't pay for it.
And he doesn't want to pay. He doesn't want to pay 110. He's upset because he paid that. He said he paid $550, but the fact is that no, he didn't even want to pay anything. He knew he'd be the only bidder. Nobody showed up, so good. See if I can get it for $1. Well, this whole thing has been an absolute. Well, it's a typical Fall River crap show. That's what it is. It's just, there's no rhyme. And you watch the city council meeting, and it's like, it's horrifying. It's like trying to interrogate a CIA agent. I can't. That's classified. I can't answer that question. Well, what can you tell us? Nothing. I can't tell you anything.
But it gets
Wait a minute.
better.
This is a public purchase. We're buying. This is something that's being brokered by people who are paying your salary, but you can't tell us anything. Wait a minute. It's a secret. You don't have a clearance for this.
But it gets better.
Oh.
During the school committee meeting, the mayor, the two, is sitting there texting away, going crazy texting. So somebody was in the city council chamber, I believe, texting away all the messages to him back and forth. Every time he put the phone down, he'd pick it back up, put it down, pick it back up, put it down, pick it back up. It got crazy. Then all of a sudden, he had to leave the meeting early to get to Government Center.
Well,
what was the problem? The problem was that the lies were flowing like water.
Yeah, and the questions were not being answered, and the questions were questions that we've asked before in general, and they began to give them a very close scrutiny in some of the questions, or as City Councilor Cliff Pont said, this is a quote from the article in the Herald News, it's an absolute disaster. Well, it's even more than a disaster. When a city administrator who's being paid to, quote, administer the city, tells the city council who represent the taxpayers that she can't answer questions that are pursuant to the city and expenditures of city monies for this process, the whole thing is, look, the whole thing, I mean, this is the next one to go into the pile of, here we go with government again. Government at its most inept. That's what that is. And they got to screw this one up too, but, well, there's a ray of hope in the next one I see. We're going to save the city again with what? Market rate housing.
Yeah, and
work begins on the Fall River Knitting Mill conversion.
For 55-year-olds.
Yep.
That's for 55-year-olds.
Yeah.
We're in Fall River to stay. We're here to build a relationship.
Yeah.
How many times have we heard that?
And wait a minute, they're a nonprofit.
That's right.
Oh, gee, another nonprofit.
In 18 months, it will hold 100 apartments for people 55 and older, plus a senior center to be run by the Fall River Council on Aging. We can't even run the senior centers we have.
Are we going to get a liquor license for that senior center?
Probably,
I don't know.
yeah.
We'll have to get, okay.
According to David Yost, CEO of Liberty Affordable Housing, again, affordable housing of Rome, New York,
Yeah.
we are very excited about this project. We are appreciative of the welcome and support we've received from the city and the state. They went to Carlos Caesar asking for Carlos's support on doing this, and Carlos gave it to them, and then Carlos got the screws put to him.
Yeah, well, I like this, and the building is a granite fortress. It's a tribute to Fall River and how it grew. Well, ask some of the 11-year-olds that were chained to the machines in that mill in the early 1900s if it's a tribute to Fall River. It's a tribute to the exploitation of workers and the exploitation of the working man. But it's a granite fortress with oil-soaked floors that if it ever go, you better have a sprinkler system working, because that building's a goner like all mill buildings are in this city, because they were all at one time textile mills. And they have a tremendous fire load in there with mill construction. And, you know, but another, you know, how much, you know, there are two things that, you know, they always say the only thing that are guaranteed is death and taxes. No, in Fall River, it's death, taxes,
and TIFs.
Market rate housing, TIFs, and inability to maintain buildings. So we've got a much longer list of things that are
And
guaranteed.
who's responsible for this program? Yeah. FROED shepherded this project through the whole thing.
Right.
Oh, come on.
God.
Come on, you're making me sick already. The Boston Business Journal came out with an article about the Amazon effect, how taxpayers are funding the disruption of the U.S. economy. Remember those TIFs we gave away?
Yep.
Those same TIFs are the TIFs that are causing businesses to go bye-bye, like Benny's.
Yeah.
Okay? Like Kmart, like Sears. So remember, you may love your Amazon and those tax incentive financing that the city gave them, but those same tax incentive financing are what are killing these businesses. Oh, and by the way, they're looking for Amazon 2.0, you know, the second location. I looked at the RFP for that. Fall River can't even get in the running. The populace of the city must be over 1 million people. We're not even over 100,000. It must have fiber optic internet and fiber optic phone services. We don't have it because Fall River was too stupid to require that the utilities go underground. I've presented that to the city council I don't know how many times, and they still ignore it. They're stupid. Every time a road gets done, move those utilities underground. Boston did it. Why? So they can put in that fiber optic system. So they can make Boston move forward faster. And that's what's happening. That's why Boston's in the running, except for one problem with Boston. They don't have the space.
Yeah. Boston's very cramped. See, but, as you said, at least Boston. And let's face a very, very important fact here. It's a hell of a lot tougher to do this kind of construction in Boston. Talk about Fall River's pipes and, you know, Boston, some of those streets in Boston are so narrow, so congested. They're from the period, you know, they're from the 1600s.
They're from the horse and buggy day.
Yeah, from the time before the Revolutionary War, and it is very difficult to do pipe relining and stuff, and far more difficult. Not that it's easy in Fall River, but it's a heck of a lot easier to do it in Fall River than it is in Boston. Because if any of you have ever been on some of those back roads that look more like alleys than streets in Boston, you can find that it's a pretty congested place.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you know, as many people may or may not know, the president signed an order which now unfunds Obamacare. The subsidies are gone, so your insurance rate will go up even more.
Oh God, they took away the subsidies. Yeah.
And Obamacare may be going down the toilet shortly, but the Boston Business Journal said that, you know, mass insurers brace for Trump to cut out the subsidies. Again, subsidies, government subsidies. Everybody needs a government subsidy. How come I can't get one? Chip, wouldn't you like a TIF for your house?
Yeah, I would love a TIF for my house. But instead I get higher taxes all the time.
Exactly.
And if I do anything to improve it, I get even higher taxes. So, you know, but they give these people, look, we've always talked about TIFs, and even if you do get a TIF, they shouldn't be front-end loaded because then they bail. They should be back-end loaded. So it's Friday. Have a good weekend. We will see you Monday, and stay very, very angry. And remember, you too can live in market rate housing.
Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you on Monday.